Welcome to the Press Box. I'm Ryan Thorburn, joined by Steve Mims. Before we get started, a little house cleaning announcement. We're going to be doing this show live in a different format on Monday at the Register Guard from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Austin Meek will also be joining us, and Ken Woody. If you're really like this show and want to hear us live and talk about the Ducks' upcoming 2017 season, tell them how they can sign up for that, Steve.
Tickets are registerguard.com/events. You say 6 to 7:30. It should be fun. Ken Woody's always entertaining in person, so you get that. And Meek will join us. We'll kind of discuss what we've been covering this season and answer questions, take questions from the crowd, take some feedback from predictions from people in the crowd about the season. So it should be a fun evening. Hope you come join us.
Obviously, the big question is, how are the Ducks going to be this year? It's often hard to tell during fall camp. We see snippets, first 20 minutes of practices. Obviously, having your starting quarterback back, something they haven't had the last 2 years when they were going with the graduate transfers, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and he's been really good. He's just looked good. It's you watch him, and obviously the only other kind of guy they brought in to play quarterback is Braxton Burmeister. But I mean, if you watch it, Justin just looks different than the rest of the quarterbacks. I mean, the size, he looks real confident, poised back there. He was doing a bunch of drills with Marcus Arroyo yesterday, and he just looks confident, like he feels like he belongs now. I think last year at the start of the year, and even when he was playing, there was some question, did he belong? I don't think anybody doubts that, and especially Justin doesn't.
I'm interested to see if Braxton Burmeister is number 2. He's a true freshman. He came in early. He's a Willie Taggart recruit. I kind of assume he will be the number 2 guy and might even play in that opener against Southern Utah just to get his feet wet. Do you think there's a scenario where Taylor Alley or Dimitri Berg, I mean, is it definitely Herbert Burmeister, a young crew there?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think that's the guy they brought in, like you say, and I do think it could be similar, obviously different coaching staff, but last year we saw Oregon put Herbert in a game in garbage time early just to play him, and then you said, oh, you burned his red shirt, but they knew they were going to need him at some point. I think you might see the same thing with Burmeister, because you're going to have a backup if you end up in a game like Southern Utah where you're up by a lot, where you're resting Justin because you can't risk getting him hurt, and you have to wonder if anything were to happen to him, you'll have to have Burmeister ready to go. So yeah, I think we'll find out who the number 2 guy is pretty quick, but I would guess that Burmeister will play in that Southern Utah game and kind of play the role of Justin last year, the true freshman who's on weight.
So who's the number 1 wide receiver? Obviously, Darren Carrington was dismissed. He's with the Utah Utes for his senior year. You have Charles Nelson back, kind of a slot receiver, and a lot of freshmen. Dylan Mitchell, someone Austin has written a column about. Any wide receivers stand out in the portions of practice that you've seen?
Yeah, the new addition, Brendan Schooler, has looked interesting out there, and Michael Johnson, DB coach, yesterday made it pretty clear that, hey, he missed a bunch of installs. He's still learning this thing, and you can't project anywhere he would be on the depth chart at this point. But obviously, if you're bringing your top returning interception leader and switching over to offense, you're planning to use him quite a bit, and that was what Mario Cristobal said yesterday. This guy's got to be on the field somewhere, so he's going to play. I would think that they bring him over there. They think he's a contender that, if not in week 1, by week 2 to be starting on the outside. I think Dylan Mitchell had an illness. We've seen Alex Ofadile is still not a full go, so they're going to need some guys on the outside, and you've got the freshmen like David Davis and some of those guys, but I think Schooler is going to emerge as a guy who's going to be a starting at that spot.
Really quite a turn of events for the defensive backfield. 2 years ago, they're drafting Charles over there to save the day, and now they feel on that side of the ball, at least at safety, they're deep enough to move Schooler. Tyree Robinson, Khalil Oliver, Brendan Schooler, and then you have the veteran corners, Ariane Springs and Ugo Amadi. What do you think about the secondary? That could actually be the strength of the defense.
Yeah, it could be. We've seen Thomas Graham, you mentioned the freshman. Also, Diamador Lenore has been sounds like he's been a little shaken up early on, but he's a contender there, cornerback too. I think that we've seen that. I think Tyree going back to safety is they like him as kind of the vocal part of the defense. I think we're seeing him there, and Khalil, it sounds like he's going more full-time there. So I think Juwan becomes more of a reserve. On the side, it sounds like Graham is still running with the ones. And Springs is up there too. It'll be interesting to see if Ugo can make a late push to be the starter and have Graham coming in on a reserve role. But I think right now we're looking at having 1 freshman and 3 veterans in the secondary.
Steve, Jim Levitt stopped and talked to the media yesterday in between Pepsis. Did you take anything away from his assessment of the defense, after about 7-8 practices?
Yeah, he talked about how the communication and the linebackers and the safeties have been better now than they were in the spring. He said, in the spring everybody was kind of learning things. They weren't speaking up. Leaders weren't emerging. I think Tyree going back to safety has helped definitely at that spot there. And he mentioned the defensive line. He thinks there's been more physical than it was in the spring. So seems like he's gotten, the spring was kind of for installing, getting to know some personnel, this and that. Now I think in fall they've got kind of that stuff in, so they're hoping to see just it kind of working as a unit more, some communication. Obviously they talk about it all the time. Sounds like they've seen at least some of that out of week 1.
Well, one thing about this new format with no two-a-days and them starting at the end of July, it's really strung out. So we still have several weeks to go to kind of figure all this stuff out and kind of get a picture of what's in store for the season. Once again, we hope to see some of you Monday night. If not, we'll see you in this forum soon. Talk to you later.